Ben Simmons had one of the more spectacular flameouts in the playoffs we have ever seen from an all-star caliber player, and it has become apparent that his career in Philadelphia is more than likely over. Simmons was really good in the first round against Washington, and good in the first 3 games of the second round against the Atlanta Hawks. But that's when the wheels came off like a beat-up commuter bucket a college kid would drive until it completely broke down. The last 4 games of the Hawks series, Simmons' numbers were absolutely putrid, and it wasn't even night and day from the previous 8 playoff games. It was more like earth and hell. But beyond that, he even admitted that his struggles were all mental. He had completely lost confidence from the free throw line, would not attack the rim because of said free throw struggles, had to be taken out of games because of said free throw struggles, and it all culminated in Game 7 with the play seen around the internet, where he passed a wide open dunk because of noted shot blocker Trae Young, and gave it up to Matisse Thybulle for a dunk attempt where he was fouled and only made one of his 2 free throws. Now it looks like the train is leaving the station, with Shams Charania of The Athletic reporting that the Sixers have opened up trade talks with other teams about Simmons. According to the report, the Sixers are looking for an all-star level player in return, and I would guess that would be posturing, and they are right to ask for that type of return. Realistically, we really don't know what a trade return for Simmons looks like, and we definitely don't know what his value is at the moment. The playoffs left a stink in the room that won't go away, so everyone thinks he can be bought low. But Simmons is clearly an all-star talent with great skills, and there is a reason why people think their favorite team should try to scoop him up at a low bargain. So his projected value is most likely somewhere in the middle. So what should the Sixers do? What kind of position are they in to make a move? What would an ideal win-now package look like for the Sixers? Well, this video, we're gonna play some amateur GM. First, I want to highlight the good qualities that Simmons has as a player, because everybody and their mothers is criticizing him, and rightfully so. And even the most staunch Ben Simmons defender more or less has left the island. So what are the good qualities Simmons has as a player? Well, for starters, he has been long one of the best transition players in basketball, leading the league in fast break points or creating wide open threes for his teammates. He is also an elite passer, whether it be in transition or even on the block. He has a nice little right-handed hook, even though that really disappeared in the playoffs, but he is somebody who averages 16, 8, and 8 basically on relatively good efficiency. He is also one of the best perimeter defenders in basketball, arguably the best depending on what you value in a defender. He can guard 1 through 4, he has size, he can even guard some 5s, he just can't guard the big bruisers like, say, a Nikola Jokic, or even to a lesser tier of center like an Enes Kanter. If you need somebody to lock up the best perimeter player on the other team, Simmons is the guy to do it. He can get deflections, he's physical, and when you get him out in transition off of those steals, it's just an automatic 2 points. He also finished top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year voting this year. He has been All-NBA third team last year on a team that was a Frankenstein roster and poorly fit together. If you get him rolling towards the basket, he can finish around the rim, although he can really only finish with his right hand. He is also somebody that provides positional versatility if you're looking to diversify your lineup because of his ball handling ability and his passing ability. I know everybody wants to meme Simmons right now, and of course jokes are going to fly on the internet, but there are good things about Ben Simmons. He is still a very high quality basketball player and an all-star, low-level star type of impact on a team. But then that leads me to the bad qualities. So, of course, we know that he struggles to score in the half court. One, because he will not shoot. It's not even the fact that he won't shoot threes or even attempt mid-range jumpers. It's he won't even look at the rim. And quite frankly, his aggression comes and goes throughout the season. There will be stretches where he will look like an absolute force just attacking the rim relentlessly, but then there are times where he's just super passive and doesn't look at the rim to score. When he's driving for a layup, he'll do the stupid drive to the basket, not look at the basket, and then kick it out randomly to somebody and hope that they can bail him out when he really should be putting somebody in the rim. He has still not improved as a finisher with his left hand. He will always look to go back to the right hand around the rim. And he has been finishing with his left hand incrementally every year, but it is nowhere near the improvement that he needs to have in order to be more effective without a jump shot. And of course, his free throw struggles have been really highlighted. There were times last year where he had stretches, and there was like a month stretch in the 2019-2020 season where Simmons shot nearly 70% from the free throw line. It was like a stretch from January of 2020 to February, the end of February. And then this season, there was a stretch, especially before the All-Star break, where Simmons shot 67% from the free throw line, which was a marketable improvement. But then, of course, post-All-Star break, it started deteriorating. And then, of course, in the playoffs, we all know he shot just over 34% from the free throw line. Of course, that is just unacceptable. And because of those free throw struggles, he would not attack the basket. There is just a ceiling on a team when you're asking Ben Simmons to be the primary ball handler on a team and asking him to be the second best player. He is a player you can win a championship with. It just depends on the role that you ask him to play. If he was more of a third option, where he played like a souped up Draymond Green, where he can set, screen, and roll to the basket and find guys on the short roll, which there were stretches last year, especially under Brett Brown, where he actually committed to screening and rolling and doing those little things. He's effective, but the problem is he is so hell-bent on being the point guard. He has been very vocal about being the point guard, very vocal about not changing his game to, accommodate the masses, so to speak. Joel Embiid has been publicly pleading with Simmons to at least attempt a few threes per game. Former coach Brett Brown had pleaded with Simmons to shoot more. And then Doc Rivers this year, who has also been a problem in of himself, I think he's been terrible, just enabled Simmons all year by basically brushing aside the fact that he wasn't scoring as much as he should. He allowed Simmons to stay in a comfort zone, and that's the one big thing with Simmons. He works on his game. I think that's not in question. I think people, obviously, we watch the games and we see clearly that he won't do the things that he works on, but he works on his game. It just won't translate to the court. So really the work doesn't mean jack shit unless you actually translate it to the court. But to the people who are saying he doesn't work on his game, that I will push back on that part at least. But there is no doubt that there is something going on upstairs where it won't translate for him. And quite frankly, those qualities are just extremely detrimental, especially for the Sixers when you're asking him to be the second best player on a championship team. And these playoffs have officially shut the door on that question. Me and Sixer fans in general, and I am a Sixer fan, there is just no reason to believe that this next season will be the year he turns it around. So now the real question at this point is, what should the Sixers be looking for in a potential Simmons deal? At this point, it's all about maximizing Joel Embiid's prime. Joel Embiid is now 27 years old. He just put together an MVP caliber season where he finished second in MVP voting. And right now at this point, it's all about maximizing this window. Embiid probably has 4 to 5 years of this level of play, granted he stays healthy, and quite frankly with the health concerns that Embiid has, that window might be a little bit shorter than we think, depending on how well his body holds up as he ages. At this point, it's all about maximizing Embiid's prime. So the Sixers were probably looking for win now packages, like in the Athletic report that I mentioned earlier. There have been trades thrown around. Of course, as a fan, my ideal trade would be something of at least at the borderline a Zach LaVine level player. Of course, there's the Damian Lillard rumors that are going on, and we don't know what his future is like in Portland. The other guard for Portland, CJ McCollum, that's the easy trade that everyone has pinpointed and put together on the trade machine 50,000 times on ESPN. More or less of a pipe dream, but still a pipe dream. Below the Damian Lillard level player is Bradley Beal for the Washington Wizards. And a trade centered around Simmons and one of those 4 guards that I mentioned, that would probably probably be the most ideal outcome if you're a Sixer fan and the Sixers organization. And then, of course, there are other suitors that are looking at Simmons. Of course, you got the bad teams or the teams that are still looking to make the playoffs, like the Sacramento Kings. The Timberwolves have been linked to them as well. Mark Stein came out with his newsletter the same day Shams Charania dropped the Athletic report and mentioned that the Kings, the Timberwolves, I believe the Cavaliers were also linked to this. The Toronto Raptors, funny enough, have been linked to this. That's kind of an unexpected team I didn't see coming. But if the Sixers want to trade with those type of teams, those tier of teams, not to be disrespectful to those teams, even though they did objectively had bad seasons last year, the Sixers would most likely be looking for a bunch of picks so they can maneuver better for future trades. But if you're looking to maximize Embiid's MVP caliber window, you're probably looking at the 4 guards that I mentioned earlier. And of course, my personal ideal scenario, of course, Damian Lillard. Everybody wants Damian Lillard, but I don't know how likely that is, especially how much the Sixers would have to give up. But the Chicago Bulls would be a good option, getting Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine has not been offered an extension yet, to my knowledge, or I believe he might have, rejected an extension this summer because he will be an unrestricted free agent next summer, and he is looking to get paid. Zach LaVine is a guy who has improved every year as an offensive player, and he would be the perfect, or as perfect of a fit as you can get with Joel Embiid. Now, of course, the question has always been whether Embiid and Simmons fit together. I always contended that the offensive fit was fine because you always need an elite passer, and Ben Simmons is quite frankly really the only elite passer or even good passer on the Sixers. So that's where this gets tricky with Simmons being the Sixers' second best player, is that Simmons has skills that really no one else on the team can do, but Simmons lacks the most important skills that you need to be successful in the playoffs. And having an elite passer paired with a post player is an ideal combination, but you really can't run 2-man game with Simmons and Embiid. You can run plays with those two involved, but it really gets janky. Where the perfect fit for them comes is on the defensive end because of Simmons' perimeter defense and size, and Embiid's ability to just shut off the paint and control that area. And sometimes he can come up to the level of the screen and stay in front of a guard, but you don't want him doing it all game. But really, they're the perfect fit on the defensive end. Someone like LaVine, Bradley Beal, or even to a lesser extent a CJ McCollum, which is something I'm just really lukewarm on. At least on that end, you can run 2-man game with Embiid and whatever guard the Sixers would get. Guards who can shoot off the dribble, guards who will take at least 7 threes per game and stretch the floor. But then, of course, you lose your identity on the defensive end and you lose the size. So this is where the tricky part comes in for the Sixers. But my personal ideal packages would involve something with Simmons and Zach LaVine. And then, of course, we've all done the trade machine stuff. It would probably be Zach LaVine or Tomas Satoransky, or even Zach LaVine and Al-Farouq Aminu and his expiring contract. But if the Sixers trade Simmons, you're definitely going to get equal value or something of less value. I think CJ McCollum is just a very lukewarm trade. I think it's the easy trade to make, but really the Sixers, I think, would be a worse team because of that. Although in the playoffs, the scoring would be easier. You have to get stops on the other end. Really, my ideal scenario would be trying to find a suitor for Tobias Harris to get some guards that could take the ball handling duties away from Simmons, just so Simmons can play more in an off-ball role and doesn't have the ball in his hands so much, because I think Simmons would be way more effective in that role, especially when you're not asking him to be the second best offensive player on the team, because Simmons has a lot of skills that can facilitate a really good offense. It's just that the Sixers, for years now, since basically aside from 6 months of Jimmy Butler and backup minutes from TJ McConnell, who is funny enough a free agent this summer, haven't really had a guard that could take someone off the dribble and get to the cup. They relied on rookie Tyrese Maxey in the playoffs because he was the only guard that could do that, aside from a few dribble drives from Seth Curry. If you look at every other team in the playoffs, they have guards that can create off the dribble, whether it be for their teammates, whether it be for themselves. It's really tough because the Sixers are now caught in a situation where everybody knows they want to unload Simmons. They're not interested in Tobias Harris, who I think I would trade him first. I think I would trade Simmons too, but if I were to choose between the two, I would choose Tobias because I still think Simmons is a highly, highly talented player that if he's just put in a lesser role where he's not the point guard and we need to give up on the Ben Simmons point guard experiment, that would be ideal for the Sixers because they would still have two high caliber players and they would have more fitting players like a few guards that could take someone off the dribble, set the table, and shoot off the dribble from three. My full conclusion is the Sixers shouldn't trade Simmons just to trade him, but with the report, that train has already left the station and Simmons' career in Philly is most likely over. It wouldn't surprise me if Simmons was in a Sixers uniform to start the 2021-22 season. If they do trade with one of the lower tier teams, they have to get a load of first round picks or they have to get a really young good player in return. Like the Kings, for example, would have to throw in one of Tyrese Halliburton or De'Aaron Fox, which I know Kings fans would not do at all. It would probably be more ideal for the Kings to keep Fox and get Simmons because Simmons actually fills a lot of holes that the Kings have with his defense, passing, transition, and size. On the Sixers side, there is no way that they would probably trade Simmons without De'Aaron Fox included in the deal, so that would probably be a non-starter. But the Timberwolves really don't have much to offer that would help Joel Embiid win now. The Raptors are an interesting one because they could maybe finesse Pascal Siakam. Maybe OG Anunoby gets thrown in there, although I'm sure Raptors fans would just reject that because OG Anunoby, quite frankly, and I don't blame him, OG Anunoby has improved every year and is an elite defender, especially when healthy, and has improved offensively in every season that he has been able to play a lot of games. It's going to be interesting, but one thing is for sure, I think the relationship with Ben Simmons and the Philadelphia fans, that's kind of been soured now, especially with how patient Sixer fans have been, hoping Ben Simmons will develop. And with the report that the Sixers are talking to teams about trading Ben, I think that train has left the station and Ben is most likely out of Philadelphia.